Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and I am thrilled to tell you that the victory has been won. The Codist is back out. The second edition is now available on Amazon, both in Kindle and in paperback. Back in print, back available. This amazing story about the weaponization of DNA. If you're somebody that likes that 23andMe, you're somebody that wants to go to that Ancestry.com, this is going to put a seed in your mind about what's been going around the world for over 50 years. Nations around the world have been trying to weaponize DNA to create viruses that would target specific people. Ask yourself this question: if Satan could kill the Jews and keep Jesus from coming back, don't you think he'd be working on finding out if there was a DNA strand that just showed who the Jews were? Well, lo and behold, there is a DNA strand for the Y chromosome for the Levites, which are the priesthood, and that exists, and this plot is real, and it is today, it is now, and it's happening. And this book is all about that. Get your copy of the Codist by visiting Amazon and put in the Codist, the book, or the Kindle version. Also, our latest release, The 7 Laws of Abundant Living, Lessons Learned from the Tree of Life. We take you on a journey. Go to ignitinganation.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, put in your email address, and get the first chapter for free. 7 specific parts of a tree, beginning with the ground to the roots, up through the trunk, the bark, the branch, the leaf, the fruit, taking you on 7 journeys, exposing 7 supernatural truths in each part of that tree that God is trying to show us with that tree of life right there in the Garden of Eden, and the tree of life that we see back there at the river of life. I'm delighted to welcome back to our program Joe Newby, who has been a regular here since the very beginning, one of our very first guests a year ago. We had Joe on. We've had him on every month since. Joe Newby is the author of Banned: How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad, and also the proprietor of the blog conservativefiringline.com, where he continues to follow and expose censorship and bias and what's really happening in Washington. This is the media that you're not getting if you're watching your home television. This is the story behind the story. This isn't what the media wants you to hear. This isn't what Washington wants you to hear. This is the real truth. Joe Newby, welcome back to the Joe Newby Hour right here on
Eric.
Revealing the Truth. Great to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, Eric. I tell you, that first book looks very, very interesting. I'd be very interested to take a look at that.
I'll be happy to send you a copy of it. I'll send it to you today.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, love to have you have a copy of it. The weaponization of DNA. You know, there's just a sidetrack. There is a nuclear, not nuclear, but a DNA weaponization non-proliferation act.
I didn't know that.
It was such a popular thing when the old Soviet Union existed that they wanted to take out various parts of society. And all of the geneticists got on board around the world looking for strands of DNA that had unique anomalies that would identify a certain people group. Now, the conspirators, the conspiracy theorists, say that they have evidence that H1N1, AIDS, Ebola, and sickle cell anemia were all engineered as weaponized DNA. Now, I went and did the research, and I found compelling cases for, and I found compelling cases against. And as you know, when you go into this world of research, and I actually went to Washington, and I met with people, and I met with people in the intelligence community. I met with people, I went to Atlanta to the CDC and met with people who are public relations. They're only going to tell you so much. But when I began to look at this and found that Hillary Clinton actually addressed an organization of countries participating in a non-weaponized DNA proliferation agreement.
Right.
I was shocked that it had risen to the level where it was so organized. Then, when the Soviet Union fell, 200 of their top geneticists disappeared from the Soviet Union and
Wow.
moved to Tehran to head up the Tehran Genetics Institute.
Wow.
Now,
Well, I can tell you, there's been several times I've expressed to my wife, it's interest in this, DNA thing and, the whole ancestry thing, because I've heard a lot of things from, my dad and my grandparents, and not that I questioned them, but
right.
I thought, it'd be kind of interesting to see if they were right. And my wife, you know, gave me her wisdom, and she said, I've heard that's not exactly a good thing to do, so I've held off. And but yeah, this sounds very, very interesting. A lot of this I have never heard before.
Yeah, here's what happened to me. There was a ministry that said, hey, we can help you find your Jewish lineage and help you get
Right.
citizenship in Israel, because Israel
Right.
was passing legislation that said that if you could prove through DNA that you were
Right.
Jewish, that we could give you citizenship. And it was all well intended. But I had this horrible hitch in my spirit that said, if Joseph Mengele had a database, and in that
Yeah.
database he had a list of every name of every Jewish person that lived in in Spokane, Washington, that lived in
Right.
Seattle, that lived in Cincinnati, that lived in Pittsburgh. And he could create, in his brilliantly demented mind, a way to put an additive in water that would only affect the people with this particular chromosome.
Oh my goodness.
That imagine a convention, a conference, and 500 people, and 8 people drop dead.
Yeah.
Well, that was Legionnaire's disease, if you remember.
Yep.
All right. All of a sudden, we found out, there was some bacteria in the air conditioning system, and a lot of people died. But what if it was so random that 8 people died in Philadelphia, and 3 people died in Milwaukee, and 1 person died in Dallas? You're not going to have a national conspiracy. There's not going to be a national investigation. It's just going to be, hey, and so imagine being able to put something in the air or the water.
Oh yeah.
That was so targeted, right, that if you had that, you'd be the only one to get that virus and die. Okay.
Well, it's both my dad and my mom and my grandparents. They've told us that we're related to certain people back in history, and you'd never know it to look at me. But when I look at my sister, and when I look at my daughter, I can definitely see some tie to that. So I for years I kept thinking, well, maybe there's something to this. But my wife's over here right now. She's doing a high five.
Well, you know what? You can do the ancestry without doing the DNA. That's
Right.
what. So they're separate. And the ancestry I did, and I wound up going to Kiev, to Odessa, to Warsaw, to Budapest, and I found family members through Ancestry.com, but I wasn't going to do the DNA.
Well, and that's just it. In order for me to prove that what I was told has any merit, it would require a DNA test, quite frankly. But this is very interesting, and it kind of ties in with something that I wrote about here a while back, Eric, is that Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, is really into things like brain implants.
Yes.
Putting little chips into people's brains, and he's talked about creating an interface between the human brain and one's computer. Now, with what you're saying here, I just had this brainstorm. What if? We know what Zuckerberg and his outfit is all about. They're all about control. And what if you were to marry the kind of technology that he's funding and working on behind the scenes, and this stuff that you're writing about, I got to tell you, the implications are frightening, quite frankly. So,
You
you know,
know,
I,
and you know this, that wherever there's an authentic, there's going to be a counterfeit. As we look at
hmm
the Bible, we see that even in the book of Isaiah, Satan's saying that I'm going to rise myself above the throne. I'm going to be God.
right, right,
We have this counterfeit. I still believe that the name Allah is simply Satan saying, you know what, stop calling me Satan. It's,
mm,
it's off-putting. But if
yes,
you call me Allah, it rolls off the tongue so lovely that no
mm,
one would guess that you're talking about me. And
right,
I really believe that is exactly. I came out of PR and marketing. All right.
right,
If we want to get you to talk about our name, we're going to change it so it rolls off the tongue. Well,
right,
if he
right.
wants to stop calling him Satan, but I call him Allah. Well,
I heard a story. I don't know if you're familiar with. Oh gosh, now his name just escapes my mind. Anyway, he runs Koinonia House Ministries over here in Post Falls, and he has done some wonderful studies on the origins of Islam and how it goes all the way back to the Ur of the Chaldees and all of this and the worship of a moon god
right.
there, which is where the symbol of Islam, the crescent moon. Very interesting stuff. But yeah, I found that very interesting, especially given some of the things that I've seen Mark Zuckerberg talk about wanting to develop. Especially putting chips in people's brains in order for them to be able to interface with their computers. And personally, I can't think of anything more frightening than to have somebody like that have any kind of access or control into people's minds. And a lot of people may be snickering, thinking, "Oh, yeah, it's another conspiracy theory." Oh, no, no, no. He is actively working to fund this research, and he's very interested in it. And you can find articles all over the place out there about it.
Um, there's a couple of things that you've been blogging about that I want to talk about and make sure that
hmm
we jump up to the conservativefiringline.com and we examine it because this is something real. Back when you wrote the book Banned,
Right,
you were able to document on countless occasions using pictures and captions of how this agenda was being advanced. And
right,
as a matter of fact, we saw in the San Bernardino shooting that had Barack Obama not had a mandate that said you couldn't check social media,
right,
that entire massacre could have been avoided because she was actively posting militant jihadi statements on her Facebook account, but the government was hamstrung because
right,
President Obama banned the investigation of looking at
right.
somebody's Facebook social media profile. Now,
Pledging allegiance to ISIS, no less.
yes, exactly. So
hmm
she gets to her husband carries it out, and we find out that everything that you said in this book is absolutely the truth. That this is an expose that they would love to never have made the light of day, but is
Right,
still as relevant today as the day it was published. As a matter of fact, even more so because they've grown exponentially.
oh
But
yes,
in today's blog, you wrote there's a panel to discuss social media censorship and political bias by Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Google. There's a move underfoot to examine what's been used as a platform to
Right.
advance an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
This is no more or no less indoctrinating than Common Core and the Hitler Youth Movement.
Pretty much, and it's scarier than people realize. Mark Zuckerberg said, at the end of last year that he was going to dedicate himself this year to quote unquote fixing Facebook. Um, One of the things that he has done, of course, is he's made sure that the pages that you have clicked like on, you generally don't get to see their posts anymore. Um, Instead, Mark Zuckerberg and his folks there at Facebook are deciding for you um, what you will see in your in your news feed and what you'll like. And of course, this didn't sit well with a lot of businesses who
Right.
pay big bucks to Facebook for advertisement for the express purpose of promoting their business. And then Mark Zuckerberg came out and he said, now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to decide for you what news sources are, quote, trustworthy based upon surveys, which I've never seen one. I don't know if you have.
Nope.
Um, yeah, based on surveys, well, okay. Um, Naturally, sites like mine and other sites probably didn't make that list. So our reach has dropped dramatically as it has across the internet. A lot of bloggers who are used to seeing 10 million views a month are seeing less than 1/10 of that now, thanks to what Mark Zuckerberg has done.
Right.
And to make things worse, he has come out. It seems like he has been doing this pretty much every week. I think it was last week he came out on his Facebook page and announced that he was going to prioritize things that you see based upon what they think are relevant comments that you might like from friends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I keep a loose tab on what's going on over there because I like to know what he's thinking.
Right.
And normally when I go there, pretty much 99.9% of everyone who responds are like, yay, yay, we love you, Mark Zuckerberg. But the last couple times yeah, there is that. But I'm seeing more and more pushback from people who are saying, hey, leave us alone. you know? um, and in one post, Zuckerberg actually responded to someone and who was critical, and he essentially said, well, I don't remember the exact wording, but basically what he said, Eric, was, well, we're doing this for your own best interest. And I'm like, what? Who are you? You're not my mother. You're not my father. I've got socks older than this guy, for crying out loud, okay? And but this perfectly illustrates the arrogance and the paternalistic nature of not just Facebook, not just social media, but of the left in general. They will decide for you what's best for you. And I'm thinking, no. you know, you know, I'm, you know, I'm over 21. All right, I'm a tax-paying citizen.
Right.
Okay, I will decide for myself what I like and whom to trust. Okay, thank you very much. Um, so yes, this these efforts. I mean, let's face it, Eric. I mean, let's cut to the bone. As high-minded as all this sounds, the reality is they want to stifle certain voices, and they will use whatever measures they think are necessary to do so, whether it be manipulating your news feed so that you can't see what you said you wanted to see, or burying the content that you have said you wanted to see based on clicking like on a particular page. It's quite clear that what they are doing is they are stifling certain points of view with which they disagree. And if that doesn't work, they will take other measures. I'm still hearing, for example, from people who say that Facebook has been banning them for posts that they have never made, but yet are being attributed to them. The last time I looked, that's called forgery. That's what they did to me throughout the latter half of 2015, and that's what helped motivate me to write Banned with Adina Kutnicki. So these things are still going on. Mark Zuckerberg's idea of fixing Facebook, quite frankly, Eric, isn't sitting very well with a whole lot of people. And so tomorrow, in fact, at was it 1 o'clock p.m.
Right.
Eastern time, they are going to be gathering together at the museum there in Washington, D.C. Jim Hoft of the Gateway Pundit, Pamela Geller, who, by the way, endorsed our book. And she's just been wonderful in leading this fight against censorship. Excuse me. And others, including Michelle Malkin, will be discussing this whole issue of what has been determined, or what has been dubbed social media neutrality. And in fact, there's a growing move. Look, you've got AT&T put out a full-page ad calling for an Internet Bill of Rights. You've got Marsha Blackburn, who has a bill that, if it's ever passed, would end a lot of the censorship. And that bill, by the way, has only gotten something like 25 Republican co-sponsors. Where's the rest of the GOP? Why is that bill still languishing in committee? Why hasn't it been voted on? Why aren't there any more hearings on it? I mean, you've even got George Soros, for crying out loud. As much as I disagree with George Soros, that's got to tell Mark Zuckerberg something. When you've got George Soros, the man who funded, Hillary Clinton, Black Lives Matter, you name it, on and on and on. Even he is coming out, or has come out, and said that there needs to be, regulation of these companies, that they are in fact public utilities and they need to be regulated as such. So we're hearing this from all sides of the political spectrum, Eric. It's not just conservatives saying, hey, we've got a problem here. No, it's all over. So what is Mark Zuckerberg doing? Well, he's continuing his efforts to tell you what you like and what you'll trust and what you'll say, and if you don't like it, why, somehow they'll find an excuse to say that you're violating their community standards.
Well, it looks like, according to the blog written by Bill Finley on the 2nd, that Americans spent 50 million fewer hours on Facebook recently, and he believes it's because of their habit of censoring Christian and patriotic viewpoints. So, this is another area of applying pressure, another area where you, as the Facebook user, as the Twitter user, as the Google user, can apply your pressure in what you like, what you forward, what you don't like, what you post, and where you post. We're out there. We've got about 152,000 Facebook followers, but we've lost about 30,000 Facebook followers for absolutely no reason whatsoever.
Right.
We've picked up a bigger following on YouTube, but our Facebook following has dropped off, but our Facebook Live audience continues to increase. So it's been very, very interesting watching this development. We're talking with Joe Newby during the Joe Newby Hour. Joe is on with us on the first Monday of every month at the 12 o'clock hour for the Joe Newby Hour. We're talking about the conservativefiringline.com, the blog that he operates and is a contributor to, and how Facebook enables militant Islamic jihad. This book is available to you online. Go to either the WND Superstore or to Amazon.com and get a copy for yourself and read about how Facebook really operates. This is a behind-the-curtain look at the operation of Facebook. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to dig into some more of the questions that I have about this 4-page memo that came out, what it said, what it didn't say, And did the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, okay, buy, finance, and fund a campaign, an investigative campaign to usurp Donald Trump's campaign? This, if that is the case, if that is the truth, this makes Watergate look like the Little Rascals. This makes Watergate look like Yosemite Sam. This makes it look like the Roadrunner. This would be the greatest, most comprehensive, diabolical political plot run by a bunch of rank amateurs. Because if buying of false information was funded with your tax dollars, for the FBI to choose the campaign, to choose the candidate that was going to win the election, we got a major problem in this country, and there's something we need to do about it. We need to talk about that when we come back from break. We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our 1-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, welcoming you to the Joe Newby Hour. And Joe Newby, the author of Banned, How Facebook Enables Militant Islamic Jihad, and one of the many contributors and proprietor of the conservativefiringline.com. I strongly suggest you join along with almost 100,000 other people. And Joe, I've seen your numbers going up. I'm very happy to see that the subscribers, you're up over 90,000 likes on Facebook, and I encourage you to go to Conservative Firing Line and like them and follow them. You're going to get a view, and it's not the conspiracy theorist view, it is the rest of the story. It's kind of like the Paul Harvey, may he rest in peace, information that you're not being told, that are the questions that are not being asked at the press conferences that you want asked. These are the questions that are being asked on this website, and you're getting the actual answers. For example, one I've struggled with and stay up at night as to why can't Whoopi Goldberg say the name Donald Trump? I didn't know. I thought it might have been something where we should contribute to a fund, have a GoFundMe account, maybe in need of a speech therapist, but it's not. She can't say it. She won't say it, and I think we need to change the headline, because I was starting to feel bad for her. That, my goodness, your mouth can. There's some issue. Well,
and the thing with Whoopi is very interesting, because she said some pretty knuckleheaded things in the past. Here a few years back, she actually claimed that communism looks good and makes sense on paper. So that's Whoopi Goldberg.
I have no response for that, because back in the day, and you can remember some of this. Mao's Red Book was a pretty common document passed around the hippie community.
I remember those days.
It was not some forbidden fruit. It was something that people actually looked at and read almost as a manifesto, and saying, some of these things. And listen, Israel was founded on socialist principles because they were a British colony, and the idea of a kibbutz, of living there and everybody having equal status, whether or not you were a pooper scooper or you were the chief administrator, everybody got an equal share, and you all lived there, was actually the perfect way to start the country, because everybody came in the same capacity, and then they moved as they found that, wait a second, we're giving the guy that's not even showing up to work the same percentage of the operation as the guy that's, well, we're going to change that. We don't want to change, but we have people who don't want to live where they work. We need to give them options. So they have what's called the moshav, which is more of a capitalistic approach. You don't have to live
Right.
there, and you're based on performance. And so they've migrated to what is a much more workable system, although
Right.
they do have a universal health system, which is far superior. However, if you want a heart bypass, unless you need it right now, you might get it in 6 months or 9 months, depending on when there's an opening. So
Right.
it's really no different than Canada in that regards. But their medical technology and breakthrough is great. All right, so a four-page document's released, and in that document, it clearly states that there was a concerted effort to provide information which was damaging to Donald Trump and would implicate people in his campaign, and it was funded with taxpayer dollars. It did not include the fact that the dossier which was acquired, which started this whole process, was a creation of the Democratic Party.
Right.
And therefore, the FBI bought a falsified document whose only purpose was to create a false narrative that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin were colluding. And the question I have for you is, it would be so much more likely in my mind that Bernie Sanders or Barack Obama would be colluding with Vladimir Putin to advance the cause of socialism and communism than a Donald Trump. It's almost farcical to think that somebody who is so capital-driven would be in collusion with somebody who's so communist-driven.
Right. Well, and it's a whole lot deeper than that, Eric. I mean, not only did the FBI at the time know that this document was fake, at the time they used this fake document that they knew was not vetted, it was not verified, could not be verified. So they used this fake document to go to a FISA court to obtain a warrant to spy on an American citizen. And it gets worse. They used that same document, knowing that it's fake, according to the memo. They used that same fake document to go back and get, 2 or 3 extensions of this FISA memo. So they knew from day one that this thing was fake, that it was phony, that it was bought and paid for, as, quote, opposition research. Questionable opposition research at that. They knew that it could not be verified. And then Fusion, Christopher Steele or someone within Fusion GPS leaks portions of this to the media and uses this fake memo to drive stories within the media. Those media stories, by the way, were used as corroboration. I mean, this is what we refer to as circular reporting.
Right.
Okay, I write a fake memo. I use this fake memo as evidence to obtain a warrant, and then I give this fake information from this fake memo to reporters who don't bother to double check. They just write whatever I say because I'm a good liberal and I hate Donald Trump, and voila, we have quote unquote corroborating evidence, when in fact what they have is the exact same fake information being used to obtain warrants in order to spy on not just an American citizen, Eric, but to spy on a political opponent of the Democrat Party candidate.
The way I understand this, that when they issued this, that if you were named in this, then anybody you have ever talked to can be looked into by default that you were named. So if you were named in this dossier, then because you and I have a relationship, We've spoken by phone, we've emailed, we've texted, we
Right.
correspond, we communicate, that they could then violate my, uh, what is it, my Fourth Amendment right,
Hmm.
and look into me when I am periphery to you,
Right.
uh, but they don't have to name it separately, and I should have
Hmm.
individualized protection, but this becomes paintbrush.
Right. And that's all this is. That's the way I understand it as well, Eric. And this whole thing has become nothing but a witch hunt. If I were, for example, named in this, there would be, some serious problems because it wasn't that long ago, Eric, that I worked at a company. I think I told you this before, where I sat not more than 10 feet away from a Russian. I even had dinner at his house one night. Okay. Um, so there you go. I even spoke to a Russian who once lived next door to my in-laws, and I think I shared this with you too, who happened to be my counterpart in the Soviet rocket army back, way back in the days of the evil empire. And he shared with me, I was a nuclear, biological, and chemical defense specialist, and we got to talking. And he told me what he did, and he told me, he says, "You had nothing to worry about from us, believe me." So, the witch hunt goes on, and from what I understand, this memo only covers about maybe 10 to 15% of what actually went on. I've been hearing that we're going to see more memos like this come out. Um, One of my contributors, actually, who served in the Air Force during the time of the Cold War, um, put up a petition on the White House We the People website calling for the arrest of those named within this memo and who were involved in this memo. And I support that effort wholeheartedly. I definitely think that there is enough here to warrant an arrest. I'm not a lawyer, but it certainly seems to me that if I did 1/10 of what is detailed in this memo, there's no question that I would be, you know, arrested and placed behind bars. So my question is, why aren't these people being investigated, arrested, and looked at? More to the point, the Paul Manafort's, Michael Flynn's. What does this do to their indictments? Um, does is this enough to warrant dropping any charges against them? I'm no lawyer. I can't say yes or no. They seem to think so, and they're certainly taking moves in that direction.
As I look at all this, my expectation is that the Department of Justice, headed by the Attorney General, should be saying we need to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate everything to do with this. We need oversight over the Mueller investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we're looking to fire Mueller, but there have been a series of improprieties that have been brought to our attention that are not precedented. They're unprecedented, and they have gone outside the scope. So Mueller has no accountability.
None.
Now, the Attorney General recused himself from the Russian investigation, but that does not recuse him from any other part of the investigation, only that part which addresses the Russian collusion piece of it.
The alleged Russian
The alleged,
collusion.
right, the alleged Russian. Okay, now.
Which, by the way, Eric, there is yet to be a single shred of evidence to indicate that ever happened.
Right. Now, the question is, and I love our Attorney General, but
I do too.
I think he's a fine man of honor. Is this something that they're waiting so that they can play, excuse the pun, the trump card, a card that's so big, that's so ominous, that's so all-encompassing, that's so exposing that it is the Watergate report.
Yeah.
It's the findings.
Yeah.
It's actually the findings of the Watergate Commission.
Right. You know, and I'm with you. I have always admired Jeff Sessions. I've always thought him to be a man of honor, and I still do. But you know what, though, Eric? Myself and there's a whole lot of people out there who are becoming increasingly frustrated with, you know, the lack of action from him on any of this. I would think that by now he would have stepped in and would have said, you know what, we need to put a pause on all of this and step back and take a look and make sure that we've got all of our ducks in a row. Maybe not necessarily fire Mueller, but just say, no, we're going to put your investigation on hold until we get to the bottom of this. And then once we know exactly what's happening, then we'll make that decision whether or not you can continue with your witch hunt or if we're going to, you know, drop this. And, you know, I don't know if he's got the authority to do that. I would think that he would. He is, after all, the Attorney General, the chief law enforcement officer of the land. I would think that he would, considering that there was no crime ever committed, considering that we now know that this whole Russia collusion conspiracy, that's all it was from day one. It was a conspiracy cooked up by the media, cooked up by the Democrats, forwarded by the Maxine Waters, who, you know, keeps coming up with one crazy conspiracy theory after another. And now you hear people like this, you know, Phil Mudd, who last year, Eric, came out and said the government's going to kill this guy, talking about Donald Trump. And just recently, he made you know, another statement on CNN, where he's an analyst and basically saying that they're going to come to get him because the FBI has been around since 1908 and the Trump administration's only been around for 13 months. Well, I'm sorry, I hate to tell him this, but the Constitution and we people of these United States have been around a whole lot longer. Okay? And if they try to take Donald Trump out, there are going to be a whole lot of people in this country who are not going to sit still. I'll tell you that right now. The anger in this country, Eric, toward what we call the deep state is at this point palpable. You can feel it out there. It's everywhere you go. And when you have people like, you know, this Donnie Deutsch, who the other day openly called for a revolution. Okay, that's a violation of law, by the way, to openly call for the overthrow of the government, which is what he did, calling for a revolution, and, you know, people taking to the streets. And you have, you know, the MSNBC panel there saying, yeah, well, sure, yeah, that sounds, yeah. Instead of reining him back and saying, what, are you an idiot? What's the matter with you? You know, this is the United States. We don't have revolutions just because your candidate lost an election.
Right.
They do that, you know, they do that in the third world, okay? They do that in banana republics. They do that in places like Venezuela, okay? We don't do that here in the United States. So, you know, why is that being allowed? Why are we constantly being told that we have to have revolutions and armed uprisings and all this, and we have to have, you know, or the government's going to, you know, needs to take Donald Trump out? Where are we, Eric? Where are we heading with all this?
Well, and it's such a great question, because my dream team, I will tell you, back during the election time when we had the 16 or 19 Republican candidates, and I began to look at what my dream team looked like. My dream team looked like Donald Trump president, Trey Gowdy, Attorney General. Ted Cruz, Supreme Court Justice. That's really how I saw this thing playing out. I saw a backroom deal being made in my mind of Donald Trump saying to Ted Cruz, listen, okay, you're not going to get the nomination, okay, but I'm going to get you not in the first go round because you're an opponent and you're not going to get the Democratic vote, but in the second go round, all right, you're my guy for the Supreme Court, and I fully expect you one day to be the Chief Justice of the Supreme. You are a constitutionalist from the word go, and you're never going to be President of the United States because you don't have, you're not a nice enough person. You're too angry. You're too mean. You're too mean-spirited.
Well, I think I tend to agree with you, Eric, to the point that I think Ted Cruz pretty much blew his shot at the White House. Donald Trump pretty much savaged him on the campaign trail, and there's enough acrimony out there against Ted Cruz that, excuse me, even were he to run for the White House, I don't believe he would ever make it.
Exactly.
And right now, I think the best place for Ted Cruz is right where he is in the U.S. Senate, because one of the things that we have seen here over the last 13 months is just how petty and just how childish some of these so-called Republican senators have been. Not to name names, but there's John McCain, Jeff Flake, Bob Corker, and I can think of a few others.
And all the ones that aren't running for re-election that would pull themselves out of it. It's very, very, very disappointing. So I'm actually in a very, very much of a state of confusion, and I'm waiting in this next 30-day window to see either a change at the Attorney General level, and that Trey Gowdy would be my top choice.
Mine too.
I want a fire ant.
I think most of us do, and like I said, as much as I like Jeff Sessions, I'm really disappointed, quite frankly, with the way this has turned out, the way he recused himself when, in my opinion, he didn't have to.
No, and the way he did it, by not going to the president first, who could have said, hey, first of all, we're not even in office yet, and you're already setting precedents.
Right.
We've run out of time, but I just posted the thesis behind. You had it up on Conservative Firing Line. I just put it up on Twitter to our 250,000 Twitter followers, so they know what's behind this book, so that they would be interested enough to get it, because you took the time to post, hey, you've heard about the book, but you really know what's behind the book. And so I took what you had posted and I put that out there and sent it out to our audience, because I want them to know, I want them to read this book. They need to understand that this is an Orwellian approach to controlling what America is fed. It is your new. It is your. It's claim. It says this is your news feed, all right. But it's not your news feed. It's their news feed, and it's your part of their news feed, and they're controlling that, and they're controlling what's happening. Joe Newby, always great to see you, my friend, and I'll get a copy of the Codist out in the mail to you today.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Thank
God
you
bless
very
you.
much.
Thank you for always being such a great part of our program. We're going to.
Thank you for having me.
All right. This brings to an end our live broadcast day, but as always, we broadcast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we will continue to replay these episodes, and then later on this evening, they'll be uploaded to our YouTube channel and then over to our partner, WND TV. So look for us here on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, WND, here, there, and everywhere, as we bring you Revealing the Truth. We'll be back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Central Time, right here from our studios live in Birmingham, Alabama. Until we see you right back here tomorrow, we bid you shalom.